Hello aspirants, welcome to the Metis IAS NCERT Foundation course for UPSC CSE. This is the chapter 2 of class 6 Civics NCERT, and this is day 3 of our 63 class NCERT Foundation journey. In this session, we will clearly understand three very important concepts. Those are diversity, inequality, and discrimination. These ideas may look simple, but they form the base of social justice, and UPSC repeatedly uses them in prelims, mains, and interview. So, listen carefully. Focus on concepts, not memorization. Diversity. Let us begin with diversity. Diversity means difference in society. Difference in society. People differ in language, religion, culture, food habits, dress, and ways of living. This difference is natural. Diversity itself is not a problem. A society can be diverse and still remain united. The problem starts only when diversity is not respected. So, the key point to understand here is this: diversity by itself does not create conflict. Conflict begins only when differences are treated unfairly. So, the key point to understand here is this: diversity by itself does not create conflict. Conflict begins only when differences are treated unfairly. Discrimination. What is discrimination? When differences are not respected, when differences are not respected, they lead to discrimination. Discrimination means unfair treatment because of differences. Discrimination means unfair treatment because of differences. This unfair treatment may be based on caste, religion, gender, language, region, or poverty. Remember this line very clearly. Difference is natural. Difference is natural. Unequal treatment is discrimination. Unequal treatment is discrimination. This distinction is extremely important for UPSC conceptual clarity. But discrimination does not appear suddenly in action. Before it happens outside, it first develops inside the human mind. Next, prejudice. Prejudice before before discrimination happens in action, it begins in the mind. This is called prejudice. This is called prejudice. Prejudice means forming a negative judgment about a person without actually knowing them. What is meant by prejudice? Prejudice means forming a negative judgment about a person without actually knowing them. So prejudice is mental, invisible, but dangerous. It is the first stage of discrimination. When such negative thinking is repeated again and again, it slowly becomes fixed and rigid. Fixed and rigid. Stereotypes. What is meant by stereotype? When prejudice becomes rigid, it turns into a stereotype. A stereotype is a fixed belief about a group. A stereotype is a fixed belief about a group, but a particular group. It ignores individual qualities and assumes that everyone in the group is that same. Stereotypes strengthen prejudice and make discrimination easier. So, if we observe carefully, discrimination is not a single act, it is a process. So, we will go into this very clear. This is three-stage process. We will discuss on how discrimination is created elaborately. UPSC expects you to understand this sequence clearly. First of all, prejudice. Prejudice, wrong thinking. Next, stereotype. This is fixed thinking. And next, discrimination. Discrimination, action. It is the action. This is a high yield prelims concept. Now that we understand how discrimination develops, let us clearly separate it from another commonly confused idea, that is diversity versus inequality. Now let us clearly separate two ideas. Diversity. Diversity means what? Diversity means different ways of living. When it comes to inequality, inequality means unequal opportunities. Unequal opportunities. Let into go deeper. For example, poverty is inequality, not diversity. Many students confuse these two. UPSC does not. Many students confusing diversity and inequality, but UPSC does not. Why? Because understanding this difference helps us explain many problems in Indian society. That is why we have to learn. Inequality in Indian society. In India, inequality has created social hierarchies, denied basic rights, and marginalized large sections of society. Inequality is not a natural, it is socially created and historically sustained. To understand inequality more deeply, we must also look at some real life experiences. For example, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar faced discrimination even as a child, but he believed strongly that education is empowerment. Through education, he fought inequality and became a symbol of equality, dignity, and justice. This idea is central to Indian constitutional philosophy. However, inequality is not always based on only one factor, multiple factors. Sometimes people face discrimination on more than one ground. Multiple discrimination, this is called. For example, a person who is poor and also from a marginalized community. This creates deeper inequality and makes social mobility more difficult. This is multiple discrimination. This is what we called. UPSC tests this idea indirectly in social justice questions. Because of these realities, UPSC examines these concepts differently across stages. In prelims, UPSC asks concept based questions on equality, inclusion, and access to basic services. We'll go through few questions in prelims. PYQs. Inclusive growth requires equality of opportunities. It came in 2020, 2012 prelims. Access to basic services reduce inequality. This is prelims 2015. Social empowerment needs removal of discrimination. Prelims 2020. So look carefully. UPSC has asked this type of questions linking with inequality and discrimination. The basic and primary idea comes from here only. That is what we have to learn this concept thoroughly and deeply. As far as it is UPSC mains is concerned, in mains questions focus on inequality, marginalization, and governance challenges. We have to go through into thoroughly of UPSC mains prerequisites regarding marginalization and discrimination. One question asked in 2014 GS paper 1, that is role of inequality in marginalization. Role of inequality in marginalization. Again, these type of questions are asked in 2017 GS paper 1. Persistence of discrimination. Persistence of discrimination despite safeguards. And again 2016 paper GS paper 2, governance type of questions. Equality before law is not absolute. Observe carefully these type of questions. And as far as UPSC CSE interview is concerned, questions test your administrative mindset. Can laws alone ensure equality? Is discrimination a governance failure? What is the role of a civil servant? These type of questions they are asked in interview. Let us lock the core ideas of this chapter. Diversity is natural. Discrimination is man-made. Equality is a constitutional responsibility. If you remember only this, you can handle prelims, mains, and interview questions confidently. So that is why this chapter is more important. With the conclude today's session, revise the ideas, not the language. This is the Metis way of learning NCERT, simple, structured, and exam oriented. Thank you. We will continue the next class.